gosh, what an absolutely massive play to start the game.
Is he going to get the one shot? He gets the one-hit KO!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the weekly mailbox. You guys are so awesome about sending me questions. I could probably film like 4 of these right now. There's just so many questions I could be and should be answering, but I can't pick them all. So, you know, I pick about 10 and I'll just go through them, and then hopefully if you don't see it today, you might see it next week or something, or if I get that many questions, I might have to do 2 of these a week. We'll see. But if you've sent me a question or just hello to my mailbox, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I do. I read them all. If I haven't responded, I think I respond to everyone, but if I haven't responded, I either didn't read it or there's a reason why I didn't respond. I don't know. I was busy. I don't know, but I read it. It means a lot. Anyway, let's get started on this week's Pokemon Mailbox. The first question this week comes from Isaac, and he asks, how do you predict in VGC 2015? I struggle with it quite frequently. Isaac, that is an awesome question, and I don't know, at least 60-70% of Pokemon is just predicting your opponent. I mean, there's the team building aspect to it, and then the playing the team aspect. And playing the team, a lot of it comes down to what is my opponent going to do, and, how can I beat him? What I usually do, there's always exceptions, but usually I picture myself as my opponent. If I was in his position, what would I do in that situation? And then I would tell myself, oh, I might switch this to this, or I might protect and attack cross. And then I come back to myself on my side of the board and I try to respond to that. Now there's also the added confusion of, well, is my opponent expecting me to expect him to protect, and now he's not going to protect? And then you go after it. And it's just, a lot of the time it just devolves into a huge rock, paper, scissors game that you pick the right answer, or you decide, well, there's option A, option B. Which one can I still win out of if it's the wrong option? And you go with the one that's less risky. So it's a mixture of that. Making big calls on big plays, ice beaming into a Rotom Heat because you think a Dragonite's coming in, versus, well, I could ice beam into it, but I could also Scald, and this way it'll break the multi-scale if he does come in, and I don't need to get the KO on the switch in, but if I don't, if he doesn't switch and he overheats me, I'll lose this game. It's a big trade-off of whether, is it worth losing my positioning? Do I need this huge momentum shift? Is he going to do this? I don't know. Am I going to lose? And then, it's really confusing, and that's what makes doubles so dynamic. There's so many options and so many things going on at once, and you really only got 45 seconds to decide what you're going to do about it. Next question this week comes from Super Mega Man, and he asks, at Nationals this year, do you plan to not use Protect again? Now, this is a good question too. The first time, last year when I went to Nationals, and I won, but I didn't really have Protect on my team. I did have King Shield. To be fair, I had King Shield, but I couldn't stop status, basically. I only made the team that way because as I was building the team, I realized, oh, I really need a Specs on a Hydreigon, so let me put that on. Oh, now I really need a Scarf on my Politoed. And then to round out the team, I really needed a Band on my Talonflame. It just kind of ended up happening that I had all of these choice items, and I really needed Fake Out instead of Protect on Kangaskhan, stuff like that. And Fake Out on Ludicolo. The team kind of built itself. I looked at what the team had, what it needed to beat, and I put on the individual pieces that would allow me to beat things I expected to see, and it just ended up with me not having room for Protect. Would I do it again? Yeah, if the team called for it, absolutely. Am I going to go out of my way to not run Protect? Absolutely not. I think Protect's probably the single best move in all of VGC. So, if you're not running Protect, there better be a good reason for it. Next question this week comes from Jacob, and he asks, what do you think is the worst Pokemon in VGC that is still, for some reason, used with regularity? Now, worst is clearly subjective term, don't get me wrong, and I'm gonna say something and someone out there is gonna be like, but that's my favorite Pokemon and I used it to do this, and completely subjective. You can probably get anything to work in certain circumstances, and I may not even know what I'm talking about. I know in 2014 some people tried to use Hawlucha. I tried to use Hawlucha. I think it's pretty bad overall. I think it's up there with being something that's relatively used, like at least a little bit. It's pretty mediocre. in my opinion, go prove me wrong. That's cool with me too. I will be the first to admit that I was wrong if you can go do something with it, because it has potential too. Don't get me wrong. Manectric, not a really big fan of Manectric, especially regular Manectric. I just think there are better things for that slot on almost every team, like Raichu. So both of those are kind of meh to me. I also think Noivern is kind of meh, and I know a lot of people use it pretty well, but for me it never really worked out. So those would be, that's what comes to my mind. Now, go ahead, go use them and go win worlds with them, and I'll be like, yeah, you're right, that thing's awesome. And I will be the first to admit that it was awesome. That's cool with me too. That's just from my point of view right now. I see those as being extremely mediocre Pokemon. With potential, The fourth question this week comes from Gio, and he asks, I think that's a guy's name, like short for Giovanni. I really like Torterra, and I want to use it in OU. Can you suggest a build or a team build for it? Thanks. Torterra, awesome Pokemon. Not really seen that much in VGC. OU, not my cup of tea, so maybe you were asking the wrong person here. But, Stump did use a great Torterra set in regionals one time, and it honestly probably could have carried him to some kind of top 4 finish if he hadn't been crit by a hammer arm. So, I'm going to get you that set. I'm going to post it right here. Just like look at it. You guys can freeze the video. And yeah, next question. This next question comes from codename Mauve Sky. And he or she asks, have you ever played the Mystery Dungeon series? If so, did you like them, and which is your favorite game? I did. I played them when they first came out. I played Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. I think that's what it was called. I enjoyed it. I think it had some entertainment value. I didn't play the next series, the next 2, or however many have come out since then. I don't know why I didn't, but I only played the Blue Rescue Team. I enjoyed it, so I guess that's my favorite one. Yeah. Next question comes from Sir Blaziken, Duke of Fancy Pants. This is a little bit of a doozy, so bear with me. As you are obviously aware, in Pokemon there are multiple ways of lowering an opponent's physical attack, including Intimidate, Burn, etc., and therefore making more physically oriented Pokemon a challenge to use against certain types of teams. Do you think that there should be similar ways of dealing with special attackers to balance things out a bit? What a great question, and it's something that probably has come across every competitive Pokemon player's mind at some point, at least in VGC. I mean, it comes across my mind all the time. Intimidate, you can send out a Pokemon, nerf a Pokemon, your opponent's physical attack right on the spot. You can burn to have their attack. Should there be something that works like that for special attackers? Ooh, that's a really, really tough call, and I can see it going both ways. One, it kind of seems unfair. Like, why can't I nerf a special attack, or on a switch-in? Why is it only these physical attackers? And that kind of seems, you can kind of seem like, well, that's not fair. Like, then that kind of weighs heavily on, using more special attackers. And that's what you see a lot today, ever since Intimidate became like a real thing. You just don't see as many, you don't see full teams of physical mons, you try to keep like 1 or 2, maybe 3 on a team, but more than that, kind of shooting yourself in the foot because of Intimidate, Burn, etc. Should there also be one for special attackers? I honestly have no idea how that would overall affect the game. It may become too broken. It may balance things out. I'm really glad I'm not the one who has to decide that call, because I would not know where to stand. I figure the people who were making the game have a reason they only put it on physical attackers. I have a reason. I mean, I have a suspicion that they have a logical reasoning behind it. If they ever were to come out with something that nerfed special attack on a switch-in, I would be surprised. I'd be like, wow. But then I would be like, okay, it's about time. But there's got to be a reason they're doing it. So I think it's better. It's probably, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I can't even make up an answer. That's a really good question. Next question comes from Matt, and he asks, is Jennifer your girlfriend? So you guys may or may not have seen my video with a girl named Jennifer, and I asked her a bunch of questions, and she got them basically all wrong. But no, she is not my girlfriend. She is my cousin who lives in Ohio, who is, I don't even know how old she is. But I've known her since I was like really little. So, yeah, we've known each other a long time. No, not my girlfriend. cousin. Related. First cousin. Next question comes from Colton. What's your favorite gimmick / strategy in Pokemon? Now, if I could include, from any VGC season, 2010, Choice Scarf, Giratina, Shadow Force, next to Focus Sash, Protect, Close Combat, Infernape. One of my favorites of all time. It was so good. And the way it worked, Giratina, super fast, you Shadow Force, you become, you disappear for a turn as your Infernape protects. Then on the second turn, you Close Combat into whatever Giratina is about to land on. Now Shadow Force broke Protect and hit everything for so much damage except for obviously normal types. And so therefore you Close Combat into the same spot. They can't protect out of it. They're either going to take a huge Shadow Force to the face, they're going to switch in a normal type like a Chansey and you Close Combat it to KO it, or if they just leave it in, Infernape's usually so fast, you'll land the Shadow Force, and if that didn't KO, the Close Combat would. Or if your Shadow Force KO'd, then you just Close Combat the partner, and they couldn't KO you back because your Giratina's got a lot of bulk and Infernape had the Focus Sash. So it was quite a team. I mean, those two by themselves were really, really good. So of all time, that's probably my favorite. And finally, for the last question of this week, Brendan asks, at what point when you are building a team, if ever, do you look at common strategies, lead pairings, or gimmicks, such as Kangaskhan and Sylveon, Terrakion, Whimsicott, or Scarf, Smeargle, and Talonflame, and ask yourself if you have to beat them? Great question, Brendan, and I get a lot of questions kind of similar to this. Like, how do you build a team? What's your process? And I'm going to do a whole video on it. I just have to. And it's really... I don't want to say it's really complicated, but building a really solid team is relatively complicated. There are some people out there that are really, really good at it, and there are some people who can't build a team and they just borrow teams from other people. If you go around, you can probably tell, or you can even ask. If you know anybody who's placed pretty well, you can ask them, hey, did you build this team yourself? Did you get it from somebody? And they'll tell you. The only team I've ever used that I didn't build myself that I placed with was the team that was given to me in line of LCQ of VGC 2010, the Giratina Infernape one. That was given to me by Ryan and Alan Chambers, and I used that to go through the LCQ and into Worlds, and I went 4-2 or something. I got 13th or something. Yeah, I got 13th. But every other team I've built myself from basically scratch. Now, that's not saying that I didn't throw around ideas with people, like, okay, I have this and I'm having troubles with this, like, okay, Stump, how do I beat this? And he'd give me a Pokemon and I go try it, maybe get some, get a spread from him or toy around with something from him. But every single other team I've built that has succeeded, it's come from basically my own processes, except for there was one exception. My Oregon second place team, the skeleton was definitely, it came from Ray Rizzo's regional winning team from the week before that. I went half of his Pokemon and I switched the other half. I put on Goodra and Scizor, weird shit like that. I was going to run Triple Dragon at that regional. But back to what I was saying, sorry. While building a team, at what point do you ever look at common strategies, lead pairings, or gimmicks and ask yourself if you have to beat them? I would posit that there are 3 different types of teams. There's a combo team, a reactionary build, and a stall build of a team, okay? Now, don't worry, it's a little confusing just for me, me verbalizing it, and there's going to be a whole video on it because I just decided I have to. I get too many questions about it. And that's not to say that these don't overlap, but when I'm building a team, I either go, all right, I'm going to start with this combo, such as my Nationals team. It was Scarf Politoed next to Ludicolo. And I put those on first. I don't care about other things that are in the metagame. I put them on to beat Garchomp and stuff, but it wasn't I wanted to run that combo. So I focused on that combo first, and then I thought, okay, what beats this combo? What common strategies beat this combo? And then my 4th and 5th, and my 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th Mons all covered the rest of my opponent, potential choices. There's also a reactionary build where you go, all right, here's the common things in the metagame. I want to just beat them. And at that point, that's the kind of team where you start building against popular strategies in the metagame, popular gimmicks. So, the third one's stall, but real stall hasn't really happened since 2010 in VGC. And in the words of Trista, don't ever go full Jesus. I'll explain that later in the video, in the team building video, but don't ever go full Jesus. You can, and these do overlap a little bit, don't get me wrong, but if I'm building a combo team, I start with the combo, and then I start thinking, okay, what's common in this metagame? Here's this, Kangaskhan Talonflame sketch, how do I beat it? Here's this. If I'm building a reactionary style team, I'm like, okay, what's really popular right now? Oh, Kangaskhan Talonflame. Okay, I want to lead, you know, I want Gyarados on the team. It all depends on what kind of team you're building. That's where I would start trying to play against what I'm going to face. A little confusing. That's going to be its own video. I hope that suffices you, Brendan, for right now. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for your questions. Whew, these were getting tougher. First weeks were a little bit easier to answer. These are a little bit more intense, but I like them, and I hope that they're helping you. I may not always be right in what I'm saying, because I'm just, you know, an ordinary guy like you guys are, but from my experience, this is how I see things, and so take that into your own account, and then do with it what you will. Anyway, I really appreciate all the support, guys. If you guys have any more questions, my mailbox is always right down there in the description. Fire off a question, be like, what's up, dude? And yeah, maybe you'll see your question up on here. That's about it for this week. And yeah, thanks so much again. And I guess I'll see you guys later. Bye.